And that is that you just all's well. Like everything that we're going through at the moment, we should be going through. And whether you have a very religious view and higher spirit, they're all kind of intertwined. So this is what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And so that mantra really held me for a long time.
Welcome to the Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, Trent Clark, CEO of Leadershipity, serial entrepreneur, international speaker. But most people know me because I spent over 12 years in professional baseball with the Detroit Tigers, Cleveland Indians, and Los Angeles Angels, appearing in 3 World Series as a coach before I was the age of 33. Our Winners Find a Way show is all about how the 1% have found a way to overcome those challenges when faced with losses and losing. Winners find a way. I love the quote from the 4 Disciplines of Execution book written by Christmas Chesney and Sean Covey. The quote goes, winners, when shown data that they are losing, find a way to win. Won't you join us and discover for yourself how you can win too? Welcome to the Winners Find a Way show, episode 7, featuring the CEO of Rapport International, Wendy Pease. She is running a Metro West Boston translation interpretation services company specializing in marketing, legal, and medical life science translation. You will not want to miss Wendy and I discussing the importance of communication, language and cultural, global marketing, clear writing, gratitude practice, finding the right place, and language and culture. She has lived in Mexico, Taiwan, and the Philippines, where she fell in love with the richness of international cultures and came to understand that we are all human, no matter the language we speak. Catch us on this great episode of the Winners Find a Way show. And today, I welcome my good friend, Wendy Pease. Hi, Wendy.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thank you so much. Hey, I spent 2 years in girls softball when I was a kid. Does that count?
Yeah, that counts. Heck yeah, that counts. I love girls softball. Like it's competitive and it's fast. It's a fast game, so I love it.
Well, I was in 4th and 5th grade before they really took off and did it.
You're saying it wasn't so fast just yet.
No, the Bad News Bears, it was kind of like that, but we never got good. Sorry. I just tangented.
That's awesome. So we're going to talk today about Winners Find a Way. So if you're tuning in for the first time, and we interview a lot of really exceptional people on our show, and it's really awesome. And Wendy's no different, as you're going to hear here. And our show is to think about as a listener, have you ever faced adversity, felt like the losses are mounting, you need to find a better way? Well, you came to the right place, because whether you're an entrepreneur, an athlete, a business owner, you want to be a leader one day and you're on that journey, and you want to be elite one day and you want to be on that journey, this is the perfect podcast for you. And we're going to talk about some of the hard things and the roads that come along. But first, let's introduce Wendy Pease. And I'm going to have a time at the end where you can ask some Q&A. So Wendy, let's first, before I introduce you, tell people where they can find you, because you're a brand new author, and tell them where you can find the book.
Oh, yes. So you can find me, you can go to my new website, which is wendypease.com. So it's spelled W-E-N-D-Y. And then Pease is P as in Peter, E-A, S as in Sam, E.com. And that'll take you to my Rapport International website. It'll take you to my LinkedIn, my Instagram, my Twitter, whatever platform you like.
Awesome. I also like that, and if you don't know how to spell it, her name is right there on her tag, like right there under her video. Like if you can't see that, now on the podcast, they won't be able to see it, right? So I'm glad you spelled that out. Very thoughtful. Let's talk a few highlights about Wendy's Pease. You're the owner and president of Rapport International, the Metro West Boston translation and interpretation service company. And you specialize in all sorts of different things: marketing, legal, medical, life science, translation. Busy. You're busy over there.
We are busy over here. Yeah, we do everything high quality. So as you know, Google Translate hasn't taken over the world and made us able to communicate with everybody across languages. So there's still a need for high quality translation, and that's our specialty.
Nice. I mean, hundreds of companies. A lot of them people will know. I mean, 200 plus languages and cultures. That's pretty awesome. And then, of course, if you're a creative entrepreneur, MBA from Tuck, which is no joke, at Dartmouth. If people aren't afraid, with the Tuck School of Business, if you're not familiar, at Dartmouth College, which of course is the Ivy League, right?
Yeah. I went to Penn State and partied undergrad, and then went to Ivy League afterwards, where I actually learned and applied myself.
And I got very serious in my graduate.
Serious.
Okay. You are a frequent speaker, writer. I have been on your podcast, actually.
Yes.
So you're a podcast host. You're a master networker. And clearly, because of the translation business and for both social and personal, you're an avid world traveler. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then you're passionate about connecting people, especially across languages and cultures, which I think is so important. And if you saw my Fun Story Friday that came out, I talked about a fun story of connecting in Abu Dhabi with some people. And you've lived in Mexico, Taiwan, and the Philippines.
Yes.
That's awesome. I have an office in the Philippines.
Oh, that's fantastic. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, I have employee there, and love it. There's a lot of good work, and we're looking to potentially expand that environment. And I've got an assistant that works very closely to me, like daily, that is out of the Philippines, which I really enjoy. So
I went to hire an assistant in the Philippines, and I ended up with one in Kenya.
Oh, did you? All right.
Yes, Linda Cherwin is doing a great job for us. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's great. And is she Filipino by trade, or how did you jump from the Philippines to Kenya?
A referral, just through networking, and somebody said, "Oh, this friend of mine lives in Kenya. Maybe you want to talk to her." And I talked to her. She had gone to to college in the United States, and she was setting up a virtual assistant, where you could hire her. And so we brought her on and been working with her.
Fabulous. Now, what's the hour time difference between you and Boston and Kenya?
I don't know. It's about 8 or 9 hours, I think. That time zone change just happened, so I forget. But in our business, we're working with people all over the world, and that's why the asynchronous communication has been so wonderful, because we can use chat and Slack and email and still get work done.
Yes.
So we have a weekly call that we do, that we scheduled, that works for everybody's time zone. But other than that, we don't have to worry about it too much.
Yeah, so great.
I should know. It's a good question.
That's right. Well, if you're working really closely like I am, I mean, I have to know, right? And I have to think about it all the time. And of course, in America, so if you missed that, we timed out for a second there on a network error. But if you missed that, we're talking about a little geo arbitrage in our advanced offices offshore. Wendy's working out of Kenya, and I have a group out of the Philippines. And our Philippine office is 12 hours right now. It used to be actually 13. And then we did daylight savings and they didn't do anything. So now we're back to 12. And that's really nice for me, because at least I can remember it, right? Like I'm like, oh, okay, it's 2:00 in the afternoon. Oh, that's 2 a.m. I can't call her. I shouldn't do that. It's so easy now.
So Kenya is 7 hours ahead of Eastern time. So I had to look. So I didn't think it was much as the Philippines, but no, but we don't call too much. We're doing it all with the asynchronous.
Yeah, I love that. And what I also love about it is that for a lot of entrepreneurs, we don't typically work on 3-shift programs, but all of a sudden we have that ability as this asynchronous works. Hey, people are wrapping up, and then here's a new 7 hours that someone's, hey, I'm just coming on now, and I'm going to get a bunch of things done. And so productivity is ramped up a bit under this model, and it's a pretty cool program. So when we talk about, I asked you to come on, and of course we want to talk about your book, but I asked you to come on, and when we talk about Winners Find a Way, we had a little pre-talk about the show and what we do and what we talk about. And you're a world beater as an entrepreneur, but your why. Why do you come on a show like this and talk about some of the challenges, Wendy, some of the tough things in your life that you've weathered along the way, the sacrifices you've had to make to get to where you are today. Why is that important? Winners Find a Way show is brought to you by Data-Driven Operations, powered by Journeys. Journeys is a software solution that helps you create a winning formula for your organization. DD Ops, powered by Journey, helps you act as one, see as one, work as one, play as one, win as one. Are you looking for visibility, coachability, and productivity amongst your team? DD Ops is your software. Click on the link in the show notes to learn more.
I mean, I've just appreciated when people have been very open and honest with me about what they've gone on in their life, because there's so many people that just look like they have it all together. And when you dig a little bit deeper, you realize that they don't. They're really sad, or they've got big struggles at home, or they're confronting something that you never knew about. And, we like to smile. We like to talk about the good stuff, but the complexity of life, everybody goes through it.
Yeah, when you were saying that, I thought about like that perfect onion at the store, and you're like, oh, that's such a beautiful onion. It's a perfect shape. And then you start peeling and you're like, oh my gosh, this is an old onion. Like there's bad parts inside, but it looks like this gorgeous onion. And you're like, and I thought, wow, I wonder how much I look good on the outside and the inside. I had one of those days yesterday, right? Where I don't know if I look good on the outside ever, actually, but like I'm trying, right? And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, the stress is getting on me. I need some personal time. Like I need to just take a step back. I can feel my impatience. Well, I was not at my best. And I'm thinking like, hey, certain days I probably look like I've got it all together and the whole thing's a train wreck. And other days, I think I have it all together, and everyone else knows it's a train wreck, right? So,
yes, you were talking about that, and then also how fruit and vegetables have been bred. You can buy a perfectly beautiful apple, and then you take a bite, and it tastes lousy on the inside. So there's this inside and outside, and that journey of trying to make them match.
Yes.
Yeah.
So important. Okay, so let's get into the show a little bit. I really appreciate you coming on. Tell us a little bit about, first, before we get into some of your background, tell us about your book and why you wrote your book.
Sure. Well, this is my book, The Language of Global Marketing, and it's about translating your domestic strategies into international sales and profits. And I wrote it because less than 1% of U.S. companies export. And of those, 98% of them are small and mid-sized businesses. So the opportunity is huge. And the federal and state government provides free counseling and free money. They give grants to companies to help them export. So the opportunity is huge. And business owners or leaders or marketers are kind of afraid to do it. But with the way the internet has flattened the world, as the book once said, or as we've seen through COVID, we're all connected.
Sure.
So because of that, I wanted to provide something that would help leaders figure out how to do it rather than feel like they're coming into it blind and they don't know how to start. So that's what the book is about.
That's so good. Well, and what a resource, right? Because we don't know what we don't know. And the nice thing about it is it's there. Information is there, and we can get that relatively easily. And now you've prepackaged that in a very quick jaunt of a few hundred pages of like, hey, how do you navigate this world? And I love that. Like, what a tool. So let's jump into...
And, if you're curious about it, it's, I included a ton of funny stories because, between language and culture, there's always hysterical stuff happening and words that there's no translation for, and misunderstanding and colors and expectations. And what do you put on the package? And what happens if you use a bad translator? How do you avoid doing that? So I loaded it with funny stories. I added some research in there to, help define opportunities. So I'm hoping it's helpful. I'd love for you to find it on Amazon, buy it, and then leave me a review. So, I know how to get better for my next book, or if it helped you.
That's awesome. Okay, we'll look for comments from our audience. That's for sure. And then really identify with that, by the way, as you talk about cultures and navigating that water. And we've seen this a couple times in America where you see people and they're like, hey, they got their thumbs up on the book. And I was internationally speaking, and I was in a culture where this doesn't mean A-okay, right? Like I'm in this culture where this means kind of like, hey, up yours, right? And so I'm like we're going early on. And fortunately for me, and I think we talked about this on your podcast, was fortunately for me, we were just in sound check, right? And I'm like, hey, it sounds really good. And they're like, what'd I do? Like, and everybody was offended.
Right, because putting the thumbs up sign meant everything was okay, but you also have to be careful of the okay sign, because that can be offensive too. Yeah.
Yeah.
You learn the hard way.
Yeah. And I haven't even said words yet, right? I'm like just gesturing things and I'm already in trouble. But the lesson was great because someone was kind enough to pull me aside before I spoke the next day, which would have been really good in front of 1,500 people. And I'd be like, you're going to be a world, like, what a champion you're going to be. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, I don't think that's good. So,
if you watch world leaders when they speak and they're taught to use their hands with not a closed fist, because that looks threatening, but it's slightly open like you do with the thumbs up, but the thumb is down. So oftentimes you'll see them just speaking with that kind of closed hand. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's almost like there's a clicker in there, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to do anything to make any one gesture. None of this, none of that, none of that. I'm just right here. And don't let go, because if you let go, something bad can happen. Oh, that's good. That's good.
But that's the benefit of speaking with an interpreter. Before you ever present with an interpreter, you meet with the person and you say, okay, give me, I was thinking about using these jokes, or what are any hand gestures I need to be careful of? Or what are some signals you can send me if I'm going too fast? What are cultural things I need to be aware of? So an interpreter can act like that cultural broker for you.
Well, and I've learned that from you, actually, which you were really helpful as we talked about this, because I use interpreters a lot when speaking internationally. And we were just having a discussion 3 days ago as I'm supposed to speak in Spain at the end of summer, and I'm looking forward to actually some travel, right? And
Yay!
Got to go through COVID testing and all sorts of things. But I'm looking forward to working there and working with some really dynamic people. And so I'm super excited. But like we were talking about, like, I think interpreters are really necessary. And so one of the things that we do with interpreters, after I talked to you, was we have them go to our Leadershipity YouTube channel, and we have a couple private things they can view and say, hey, you can go through this and get the language now, because 80% of this language will be used again from this show. And so they have an ability to, like, oh, what does that mean? I don't know. You should have known, because we sent it to you 2 weeks before the event. And
you learned that from me? You got that idea?
I got the idea from you. Yeah,
yes, to share your materials in advance so they know what they're talking about. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. No, I think if they throw tomatoes, I'll know they're not very good translators, right?
Well, interpreters, because interpreters do the spoken, translators do the written.
You're right.
Yes.
You're right. Thank you. Yeah. Clarification.
So no tomatoes at you, I hope.
I hope not either. So let's talk first about, I mean, you're this champion entrepreneur. You've done some just fabulous things in your life. You're a mom. You're of two, and you're busy. And when you were a kid, was there a moment where you knew, like, hey, I can be a Ivy League graduate, master's level student, and I can be owning a multi-million-dollar company, and I can be? Did you know that then? Was something that happened for you that turned?
No.
Really? What'd you want to be?
Well, for a long time, I wanted to be a teacher. I mean, I love kids. And I taught swimming, and, so I love that. And I thought about it. And then at one point I told my dad that I wanted to be an interpreter. And he said, go become bilingual and learn an industry really well. And, so I went off and I learned business and sales. And so I never pursued that. So it was kind of interesting. Like 5 years after I bought the company, I was like, oh yeah, I guess I got in the industry. I'm not working as an interpreter. And then it was interesting. At one point, I said, "Oh, I want to be president."
Of
And
the United States.
of the United States, because
Yeah.
there's never been a woman. And that's,
Sure.
that kind of annoys me. So I'm glad we have a woman vice president now.
Yeah. Okay.
But what was interesting is when I bought the company, the prior owner said she called herself executive director because that made it sound like not the owner. If you ever sold it, it wouldn't,
Oh, yeah.
cause a problem. But after Hillary was running for president, no matter how you feel about Hillary, it was a woman running for president,
Yeah.
and she had she had a shirt that said Madame President. I thought,
Mm.
oh my goodness, I'm running a company. Why am I calling myself executive director? I'm going to
Mm.
call myself president. So
Yeah.
it was at that point that I changed my title. So, and I don't know was that a good reason to be executive director? Was there some, cultural subconscious about, not being called president or, whatever
Mm.
it was? Now I'm president.
What was your first language you studied in school? What was like, oh, I got to learn this first?
Well, I didn't pick because my dad was in international agriculture and we moved to Mexico City. And the school that I went to was half in Spanish and half in English.
Yeah. So
So
it picked you.
it picked me. And I love Spanish to this day.
Oh,
I think it's a
yeah.
wonderful language and I'll watch Spanish TV sometime and
Oh, fun.
speak it when I get the opportunity. Now, I'm not qualified enough to do any of the translation or interpretation work, but I can facilitate a simple conversation or vacation. So that was my
That's
first
good.
language.
That's
Yeah.
good. All right. So yeah, and it's cool that you've lived in all these places. So do you speak Taiwanese?
In Taiwan, they spoke a lot of Mandarin. And
Okay.
so I learned there was an American military base there. So where we lived in a small farming community, we took a car ride for about an hour and a half to get to the military base school. So I didn't learn much Chinese,
Oh, okay.
but I did
Does
learn.
Taiwan not have any of their own language?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I
Oh,
mean,
they do.
there's
Okay.
there's many, many Chinese dialects, and it depends on where you are. Mandarin happens to be a big one,
Yes.
but there's two forms of written Chinese: simplified Chinese and traditional Chinese.
When I look at written Chinese, I'm like, it's hieroglyphics for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like someone's gonna write on rocks. My handwriting's terrible in English. Like this is beautiful. Like they're pictures. Like we're
Yeah.
drawing small pictures, and I'm like thinking, oh my gosh, no one would ever understand me if I was in China.
No, no. But they have keyboards with Chinese characters, so you
They
can
do.
can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would
Yeah.
need. Just like I probably need in English too, by the way.
Yeah.
Um, so I love the quote. Let's move to this. I love the quote from McChesney and Sean Covey, right? Like they wrote the book, The Four Disciplines of Execution. And it says,
Mhm.
when winners, when shown data that they are losing, find a way to win. And, as a sports person, I mean, that's so important, right? We have to adapt and overcome. Like we're behind. How do we get back in the game? And all these things. And in business, I see so few businesses go back and review the tapes. Like, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? How do we really, navigate this and even know the score to know you're losing until their accountant goes, hey, you lost a lot of money last year. And that's the only score they know. Like, oh my gosh, that's a terrible result. What happened? So we talk about that, a bit of your background, that allowed you to overcome and become one of the 1%, right? Owning this elite company. Like you said, small business. I mean, it's tiny. That's the big group. That's 97%. The million or more is the 3%. It's fractional, right? So when you were up against it, losing, found a way to come back and win, down but not out. Give me one of those examples of where you started, where that kind of resolve came in you.
Okay, so you want to talk about a situation where I looked at the numbers and realized it wasn't going so well,
Anything,
or
anytime you were down and losing, and you needed to come back, and it's hard not to walk away. I mean, things are bad. Like
yeah,
you're thinking, like, oh, this isn't great. And we can talk personal or business. I mean, you got a pretty good personal story, which is business, where you were working, and then all of a sudden, you're starting a family, and they're like, okay, like furlough, like we don't wait, like how does that work? Talk to us a little bit about that one for a second.
okay, so yeah, that one was difficult. So I have two kids, and I was laid off on both maternity leaves. So the first one was a venture funded company that
Yes.
got bought out
Hmm.
and decided not to keep me on. And then and then I decided, well, I'd go work for a larger global company, something with
Yes.
more stability. So I was
Right.
director of global marketing, and they did away with the whole corporate marketing department, both of them during my maternity leaves. And that is cruel. It is mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Particularly when a woman's planning on coming back to work, since,
Yes.
we needed the income and I liked work. So as much as it sounds like, oh, great, you had more time to stay at home with your baby,
Right.
it was awful.
Yeah, yeah. Great, I have home run, but we have no food, right? Like it's great that I'm home more. I don't know. Maybe I can garden so we have food, so I can start growing things. Not many farms in downtown Boston, right?
No,
So,
no, no,
uh,
no.
so it's a tough one. So you're down but not out. What do you do? What do you tell someone who's in a tough situation like that? Like, what did you do to turn things around and change the trajectory of things?
I had my own business before I went to business school. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, one of the things that you did, which is interesting to me, I wanted to jump in there on this before you go, because you did one thing and you told us, you said, you know what I did the next time? I looked for big corporate and more stability, and then it didn't work, right? It was a good idea, right? The strategy seemed logical to me, right? Didn't
Right, right.
it seem logical at the time, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, this has worked out so much better. Now I'm in this global environment. There's no way that could ever happen again. And I think you may own the world record for that, by the way. Like, does this really happen twice, right?
Yeah.
But so you did have a strategy, and then it didn't work out,
No, it didn't work
right?
out.
All right. So you did own a business before, which is a good preface of what you had to do.
All right. So I owned a business before I went to business school, and I went to business school to learn how to explode one. And
Okay.
so I was like, yeah, I want to own my own business because, yeah, I'll work hard, but I can control my schedule. So,
Yeah.
that whole work-life balance, it doesn't really balance. You're juggling all the time, but I could be in control of it. And
Yes.
so the only problem is I didn't have an idea of what I could start.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
there I am, unemployed. I want a business. I don't know what to do. So I happened to go up to a venture forum up at the Tuck School of Business,
Yes.
and
Yep.
I ran into a graduate from there, and he said, "Well, buy a business." And I kind of laughed, and I said, "Yeah, with what money? I
Yeah.
need to
Right.
work."
Right. Like, can I hawk my car for it? And he goes like, what do I got?
But those little seeds of ideas plant in your head. And I came
Yes.
home and I got online and I started looking around, and I'm like, if not me, then who? So
Yeah.
I reached out to this woman that had started a translation company in 1987. Usually somebody looks at about 100 businesses. These are the statistics before they buy one, when they go through all the due diligence.
Yes.
This was
Yes.
the
A lot of
one
work.
that I went, ooh, this is really interesting. I really like it. I really like the prior owner. Things just blessedly fell into my lap, and we
Mhm.
took out a home equity line. And that's how I was
Oh,
able to fund it. And then the next time I went to do an acquisition, I got a small business loan,
yeah.
an SBA back loan.
Sure.
So there
Which
are
are which are
ways.
fabulous right now, by the way. I mean, that's I have a company. We do this, right? We help business owners get back in the game and buy a company, and we help sellers sell. And right now, I mean, that SBA is so advantageous. They've
Yeah.
raised the amounts massively. The rates are staggeringly low. I mean, and you've got thousands and thousands of baby boomers that are, they're ready to go. Like, they've done it a long time, some 40, 50 years, and they don't have someone to give it to. They've got a transition. So there's a lot of opportunity in that right now. So you saw that opportunity and you went for it and
Hey,
got
you know what?
creative, right? You leveraged
Yeah,
the
just off on a tangent. My superpower is connecting people. And I can't not say that if you know of a business that's a consumer product business that wants to go on e-commerce and is for sale now, I just talked to another Tuck grad who wants to buy a company. So
Okay, nice. So you're already marketing for somebody. That's great. If
yeah.
you're out there and you have an e-commerce business and you're ready to sell, Wendy
Uh-huh.
Peace, she will
Reach
connect
out.
you with your future buyer. I love that. I love it. That's
Uh-huh.
awesome. And that is a superpower for you. Let's talk about that superpower. As a connector in this world. I mean, I already see you as a connector, being able to translate information from one person to another. That's connecting them immediately. I haven't told this story yet publicly, but I will now that we said it. I should have used it actually this morning for Fun Story Friday, but maybe I'll use it next Friday. When I was in China speaking in Beijing? What's the other big city?
Shanghai?
Yeah, Shanghai. Thank you. And I was at NYU Shanghai actually, and I had an exchange student. We were involved in exchange student programming, and we had a young man from China that was going to school, and he was living in our house, and his father came down to Shanghai and met me for dinner, and he doesn't speak a word of English. And we got the Wi-Fi actually at the restaurant was the most important thing, and we did our whole conversation on Google Translator.
Yes, that's a perfect use for the translate.
Yes.
Yep.
Social, fun, probably some misinterpretations along the way, but fun with it. It was social and nothing too, we're not making $1 million deals or anything. So, but what a cool experience about connecting worlds and cultures, and just with a phone. Right?
And that's what I love about the technology that's come out. I mean, you really can facilitate those conversations that you wouldn't have really been able to have at all before. But now it brings laughter in, and you're chuckling and you're trying to figure out. But do not use it on your website, and do not use it for anything that can cause you a liability. I know so many stories about people have had, missteps into markets, or they've been offensive, or, so you got to really be careful about where you use it.
Maybe I could be a part of your next book, right? as offensive as I could be, right? Oh no. Yeah. I think that's a book, right? Like that is a book to recognize, like this really happens. People don't think it happens. Like, wait a minute, you are liable for what you said there. And if you translated that improperly, people are like, yeah, they said, I would never die if I, wait a minute, that doesn't say that on the site, does it? So let's talk about that superpower, that connection superpower. Let's talk about that. Like, how have you utilized that to help catapult you to that, elite business owner?
Well, that's all about what our company does. My prior company did that. It was about connecting. And then this one is connecting people across the world for a peaceful and prosperous world. Because I really believe if you can communicate across languages and cultures, you can make wonderful things happen.
Yes.
So I like doing it across languages, across cultures, and making connections that really work for business opportunities. So I love it. I love it. It gives me a real charge.
Well, and I think it's one of those things that now that you say that, and especially the difference between an interpreter and a translator, when I think about the great books, of course, the Bible, like how many languages has that been translated into, right?
Oh, and how many different translations are there into English too?
Yeah. Like there's so many, right? And so we find out how important communication is, right? And I like to use that example when I have these company owners who love to write the 3-page emails. I'm like, hey, listen, I think you may be getting lost in translation on this. Like, hey, you think everyone reads the Bible and goes, hey, I see it the exact same way they see it, right? Like, what did you read? I didn't get that. Like, and we all of a sudden, the longer, and it's not direct communication, and it's not pointed, and it's just rambling, and people are imagining. I think their imaginations take off, and the translation gets changed. And now you talk about cultures and barriers, and we all have that. We have, America's a melting pot, right? Like, so we all have different cultures that come into our companies from all sorts of different parts of the world, and all sorts of immigration. It's been a foundation of our country forever. And it's different. And so you start writing 3-page emails, you're confusing people. Right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. You brought up some interesting things there. And we used to be the melting pot is how we referred to the United States, because people would come in and they'd want to push away their culture and language. Everybody wanted to learn English and assimilate real quick. So go into the melting pot. That's changed.
I agree.
People now come in and they're keeping their language, keeping their culture, and they want to. I mean, that's why we have Russian school and Chinese school, and people are speaking Spanish more at home. And it's a wonderful thing because you think, there's so many words that don't have a direct translation, and foods and music. And shows and that comes in. So it's now referred to as a mixed salad because you get the colors and the different textures and everything
Oh, I
all
love
in.
that.
That's all woven together. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And then you were talking about the clear writing. That's where we say you got to start, because if you want high quality translation, you got to write the original document in good English.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really good. And I like the, coming from, I lived in Chicago a long time. Most people know that. And we still have offices there. And, and it always intrigued me because it was like, oh, Chicago, and it was self-proclaimed melting pot. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is an Italian village, and all the Italians live there, and Chinatown, and all the Chinese live there, and like
Yeah.
Polish all live here, and like, wait a minute, like we're not integrating, we're not
No.
moving with each other and mixing it up. We're not mixing that salad. Like we're actually getting more segregated, and I don't
Yeah.
think that's always great. I love that the cultures are being brought in, and it's really cool to see like, and one of the things those translates to me is foods, right? Foods come in, and
Yeah.
and we so accept that, right? Like, ooh, it's a pasky. What's it? It's a Polish donut, right? Like, yeah.
And
And
pierogies and
yes.
taco. We would have Taco Tuesday if it weren't for
Oh, right. Come
cultures
on.
coming in. Yeah.
Believe it. And who doesn't love
Yeah.
Taco Tuesday, right?
We all want Taco Tuesday
Every day. In
and
fact,
Pizza
I'm
Friday
yeah.
and
I was considering naming every day Tuesday so we could just have taco
it is the food, isn't it?
there. Right? It's my go-to, right? Knowing what you know now, back in the day, I mean, you got a young family, you're trying to navigate this. Would you have done something differently today? Like if you know what you know now, would you have still taken the same path? Started the company earlier? Tell me a little bit about what you look when you I don't want you to go back and relive it, but I would like you to review it for a minute and just see like, hey, would you see it differently, and would you do something differently? And what would you tell somebody else who's stuck in that spot?
It's interesting. I'm a very forward-looking person. Like
Yes.
I just don't have a lot of regrets or guilt because I don't look back. And part of that problem, my staff it could get a little frustrated with because I don't have
Mm.
much of a memory. I'm like, oh, where was that document? Or didn't we do that thing before? So,
Yes.
but if I look back, there's something over the last few days or few years that I've incorporated in, and one I got from my coach Alicia Marie from People Biz, and that is that you just all's well. Like everything that we're going through at the moment, we should be going through. And whether
Mm.
you have a very religious view and higher
Yes.
spirit, they're all kind of intertwined. So this is what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And so that
Yeah.
mantra really held me for a long time when I was going through
Mm.
different difficult
Mm.
things as
Yes.
I can't wish it away. I can't change it, but everything's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Mm.
And then the
It's good.
other is I started a gratitude practice a year ago in November. So it's been about a year and a half now. And I used to lay in bed before I got up in the morning thinking about everything that the things I wanted to get done that day to make it a good day. And I got up
Yeah.
very,
The to-dos,
the to-dos. I had the to-do
needs.
shivers. Yeah.
Yes.
And instead, I changed it to a gratitude where I tried to think of it and not just I'm I'm grateful for my health and my kids. But I try to pick up special moments that I was gratitude to really
Mm.
bring it down to and that I emotionally handled COVID okay.
Yeah.
It brought me through. It started my day off so much better. And I can imagine, it's turned into a lot of prayer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is the importance of prayer that, I didn't do
Yeah,
early
that's
on in my
so good.
life.
That's so
Yeah. So
good.
no matter how you do it, whether it's gratitude or prayer or thankfulness or something, it's made a huge difference in my life. And if I could go back and change anything, it would have to be incorporate that in because
Yeah.
it really does make a difference.
Yeah, it's some of the things to me, we often overlook. We're pretty blessed here, just as a culture,
Yes.
United States wise, right? And when I hear
Hmm.
people thinking like, "Oh my gosh, we have it so bad here," I'm like, Oh my gosh, you got to thicken up that passport because like we have it better than like 95% of the world, right? Like you have options here.
In certain pockets. I mean,
Yeah,
we
right,
still
right.
have problems in
No
pockets in
doubt.
the United
No
States that
doubt.
we need to
No doubt.
fix. But
Yeah. But the
yes, yeah.
opportunity, even in those pockets, the opportunity is 3 blocks away. Like it's not forever. It's not unreachable. And people have proved it time and time again that it is there for them and possible. Yeah, I love the gratitude. The other thing I find that if I'm speaking gratitude into myself or into somebody else or helping others, like it's really hard for me to be down about me, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's hard to be unhappy when you're smiling.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Or
So I
making
love
somebody
that.
else. My son did an outward bound and they had to do
Oh yeah.
gratitudes to other people. And so we
Yes.
started, he's a teenage boy. We started giving gratitudes to each other at night. And boy, it's fun. It's
Yeah.
fun to hear what he gives me gratitude about and what I give him about. And that really, it's a neat way to develop our
Yes.
relationship. Yeah.
That's a great shout out to Outward Bound. Good program, right?
Oh my
And
gosh. Yeah. I can't say
let
enough good about it.
let's talk about that one thing. That one thing. I mean, and maybe that was it. Maybe it's the gratitude, but like, what's the one value or action that you'd recommend to others on their journey when things get really hard? Like when they, I talk a lot about this, but one of the things that's really important to me, for example, is kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing. Because when it gets hard, I want to know why I started this, right? Like there was a reason, and I'm like going, oh yeah, that's it, right? Because if all of I'm looking at is all the hard stuff and not remembering the value of what this was going to mean to me and why I got into it in the first place, that's been an anchor for me along some ways. And is there one thing that you kind of hold on to along that way when things get hard?
Well, there's one thing for me that might not work for other people, but I'll tell you
Okay.
what it is. And we were talking about how hard it is to be an entrepreneur, and I'm like, oh, I just don't feel it's so hard. But then we talked about being in corporate America, and I'm like, I just don't fit in corporate America. If
Yeah.
I had to think about going back to corporate America, that laid me off twice during maternity leave, and they were
Yes.
different companies and
Yeah.
different situations and all, but I have to go back into that and try to figure it out and have the structure in my life and not the freedom. That's what I struggle with. And so I would
Mm.
much rather have the stress on my shoulders of being an entrepreneur than trying to fit in a place where I don't work. So I guess that's what it is I found where I
Mm.
fit and I have a team that I love working with. And when I did work, like I have good memories of bosses. Like Andrew Stith, I've just been thinking about him this week. He was one of the best bosses I ever had.
Yeah.
And so that company was good. So I can't say all of them, but if you don't fit in a place, find the place that you fit because life will
Mm.
get a lot better.
I had that conversation actually this morning with a client who we were talking about that. And, one of the worst things I think for owners is letting people go, right? Like that's no one wants to
Mm.
do that when you're the boss. You're like, oh my gosh,
Oh, that's
you know,
horrible. Yeah.
he's tried hard. And I like
I
him.
like him.
I like her
Yeah.
and it's great. And, but, productivity, whatever. But like for me, I remember you remember when, Jack Welch of the GE, he came out and like fire the bottom 10%. Like, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, like, what are you doing? Like, you're just ranking everybody the bottom 10%, lump them and fire them. And I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm a competitive person. If I'm in the bottom 10%, A, I deserve to be fired. B, why would I be in the bottom 10%? I don't like what I'm doing. I don't enjoy the people. I don't share the same values. I wouldn't want to be there, which is showing up in our attitudes. It's showing up in the way we get our job. So like, I think I've let people go and when I've let them, when I've unhired them, right? I've watched shoulders just drop, right? Of just like the stress of being in this environment where I'm not able to contribute as well as I could somewhere else or help and be a valued asset. And everybody deserves that, right? Like find that place where you fit and you can be that contributor where
Right.
Wendy can't wait to say, oh, I need you on this because you're so great and you're going to just knock this
Yeah.
out of the park, right?
Yeah. 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 And I remember years ago that we had a woman who was doing a job. She would, it was a doctor's office and she'd take histories and she did a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why, but we needed a sales administrator. So we moved her into the role and it just didn't work.
Mm.
And it was so sad because here somebody was that was who was in a position who she did really well at, but then moved over to another role and just didn't work out. So it's no reflection on the person. It's just finding the right place where you belong.
Yes. I have a dark story about that too. And it's unfortunate. It was totally my fault, right? I had a great person who worked for me. She was always out front, and she was like the energy and the smile, and everyone walked in and went, hey, I'll protect her, but like, where's Megan? Where's Megan? Like, I talked to her on the phone. I just want to meet her.
Right.
And I'm like, oh yeah, well, hold on, I'll find Megan. Like, everyone wants to say hello to Megan, right?
Yeah.
But Megan had an accounting degree, and we had a bookkeeper that left, and we were stuck. And like, wow, Megan, you think you'd help out? Like, and I put her in a cubicle, working on bookkeeping, and I took her out of her superpower. Right? I took all her super stuff, and then I all this light that was shining on her, I dimmed, right? And Megan was not, and she's still working hard and was a great contributor for us. And she did exactly what I asked because she's a total team player, which was awesome. And she was doing good for me. But what I didn't know was I didn't know I snuffed her light, right? And so imagine my shock at the 9-month mark when she said, hey, I found a new job. I said, wait a minute, Megan, you can't leave us. Like, you're part of us. Like, we love you, Megan. Everybody loves you. And I knew why. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally screwed it up. I screwed up. Yeah. I caused Megan. She knew, hey, I got to go back into the light. I got to go back to my superpower. And she went and became an all-star for somebody else. Right? And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I just lost an all-star. Like, and it was all my fault. All my fault.
It was your fault. But, I also hear that. And I go, why didn't she come to you and talk to you about it? If you have a boss that you like in a company that you like in a team that you've grown, also realize that you have the right, because if somebody comes to me and says, I'm not happy doing this, I'd rather do that. I'd rather hear it than have the person walk out the door, especially when I like them and they're productive. Yeah.
No, I think that's great advice for people, because I often think that too many people don't do it. And she may have tried to tell me that, by the way. Maybe I'm a bad listener. She may have shown me that, like, oh, when he walks by my desk, he must see that I'm wrapped up in my sweater. I'm back here. It's not as I'm not the same person. I'm walking by thinking, I've got 2 reports due. I've got kids to pick up after school.
Right.
Right. Oh my gosh. Like, look at her huddled in her corner, and this is terrible for her. I'm not thinking that in that moment. And you're so right. How do we communicate that with those people that we care about? Because she may be thinking, he should know. He should know. And I do think that I should have known. I do think that.
Oh.
But I do think there is a part that there's probably a way she could have come forward and said, hey, listen, this is my superpower. I need to be here. And in order for me to make the best contribution for the team, I think it's really important that I get back there. Can I help you? Maybe hire a bookkeeper so I can get back to my superstar role. And I'll be like, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. That's so smart. Like, let's just do that.
Right.
And then I don't lose her.
And that's what I love about the EO Entrepreneurs Organization with the clearing the air. What is it? I mean, I'm new enough in a forum to figure out how it is, but it's really learning how to bring a difficult conversation up.
Yes.
Because I don't think bosses are the know-all, do-all, can understand.
Yeah, at Leadershipity, we do a lot of work with teaching productive conflict. We all have conflict. But a lot of it's not very productive, right? Like, it's like, oh, I'm screwed in this job and everything's bad. And hey, meet me at the water cooler and I'll tell you how bad it is. And I'm like,
right.
Wait a minute. Why don't we talk about it and fix the challenge so we don't talk about that anymore? I'm like,
right.
I don't know. I never thought about that. I was just complaining with the water cooler. I'm like, I know.
I know. But if you're complaining, let's figure it out.
But we have a rule. So we have a rule on that, right? Like, no complaining. And a lot of companies that we work for, like, we instill it. Like, there's no longer complaining. And like, you're not allowed to do it. So, like, what I like is, like, so if I go into your office and you go, and I go, oh, Wendy, this is so awful. This is what's going on. I start whining, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, Jen, I'm going to get a TO on that. This sounds like a complaint. Why don't you go back to your desk, think through it, and come back and explain to me what the challenge is and think about maybe 2 potential solutions that are possible. And let's talk about it. And I'm like, okay. So like 30 minutes, I come back in and go, hey, this is the challenge I'm having. Every time I flip this thing over to accounting, we can't get it turned over. Maybe we don't have the right information. Maybe we should go down and sit in a room and whiteboard providing the 10 things they need instead of going back and forth and we wait 2 weeks to get this done and build the right. And I'm like, oh, that's a great solution. Solved in 30 minutes. Like, wow.
Woo, and no complaining.
You're complaining at water cooler and happy hours, which are never happy, for 6 months, right?
Right. Oh, it's so true. And I was on a clubhouse last week with a bunch of people who specialize in leadership. It's Sunday afternoons. If you're interested in it, you'd be a great addition to be a speaker. And there it was fascinating to me because we had people from all over the world talking about what makes a great leader, and it came back to getting along with people, empathy, communication, they were all soft skills. No, nobody talked about knowledge. And then when we talked about global, that shows up in different ways and how you might communicate and how you recognize the hierarchy. But it was all that getting along with people and being able to communicate that good leaders can do no matter where they are in the world.
Well, and I think it's one of the reasons that you really see an uptick in women leadership right now. Let's talk about those skills that are needed. None of us went to university to study leadership, right? I don't even know if there's a curriculum right now. A couple schools have it, but for the most part, if we were young, if you maybe did junior achievement or something like that, they talked a little bit about that. Military was a way to go in to learn about some leadership, which was more of an authoritarian and an order of leadership.
Yeah, we took organizational behavior in business school. Yeah,
that's good. That was good. Mm-hmm. So when you think about those soft skills, and you think about we talk about the card, right? Having an ACE. A card is coachability, adaptability, responsibility, dependability. Well, when you talk about women leaders, a lot of them are moms. Coachability, always trying to get better, open to learning, lifelong learners. Adaptability. I've got 3 kids, 2 companies. They're adaptable all the time. They're like the multitaskers of the world. About responsibility. They've had it since they were 10. Women are charged with responsibility. Yep.
Yeah.
I would leave my kid with a 12-year-old girl, but a teenage boy, this numbskulls, forget it. They can handle the responsibility. And then they do it time and time again, and they're put in roles of dependability all the time. I mean, I think of, when we think of our culture, we go, mom equals dependability, right? Because they count on it. And when it's not there, as a culture, we're up in arms, not dependable. Where's the mom? We freak out. We're like, he's not dependable. Right? Oh, you can't be that, right? And so all of a sudden we find this tick about how valuable, and what have we ever done in the world that was exceptional, that didn't involve people? Nothing, right? You need people. You're going to design something. You're going to build it. You're going to create it. You need people. So if you don't have any skills, I don't like your chances.
Yeah, even if you think about, I'm going to teach or I'm going to learn something. Well, you go to YouTube and watch something, good, or you read a book that somebody wrote, or that
We need people who came before us, who did it and practiced it, and lots of people trial and error, and this worked great and that didn't. And
we are two off the scale extroverts. We're talking about people. I want to hear what the introverts have to say about this.
Right.
Put your comments down below.
Right. Right. They're like, hey, listen.
Except the introverts will probably never watch or listen because.
Right. If they want to know what probably the other side is thinking, right? That might be it. So let's talk about. I want to finish with a couple things, right? First of all, so excited. Thank you so much for this time. It's been awesome. And I do want to get to a couple questions. And I also want to give a shout out to Bob Cargill, because, he was on, and, he's pumping up, man. He's congratulating you on the publication of your book. And
Bob Cargill's a neighbor of mine. I've been
that's
on
awesome.
his show. Yeah, he's a great guy. Yeah, how did you get to meet him?
He weighed in today. He's on the chat.
He's weighing in on the chat. I can't see the chat. Hi, Bob.
There you go. Hi, Bob. Shout out to your show. There you go.
Yes.
So let's first of all, I want to thank you so much for coming on before we get to the Q&A. I know our listeners see the value in the episode today. I mean, as we talk about this global marketing and the value of it and your walk through this and all how our cultures intermix, it's so cool. I enjoyed learning about that. I've already enjoyed learning a lot from you, of course. But let's talk about, is there one thing that that you think that we haven't covered? Time for the best way to win. Is there something that you want to share with listeners that we did not touch on today that you feel like, hey, this is one of these critical things we can't pass over when we're talking about developing, when we're talking about, continuous learning, when we're talking about being the best?
Yeah, I think so often we focus on IQ, which is intelligent quotient and how you measure smartness.
Yep.
There's also EQ and CQ. So emotional intelligence, is spend time with that. Because if you can really tune into what your gut is telling you, what you want to do, it'll help you form that vision, and then you can figure out a way to do it. So it has to start with your heart and your gut, then go to your head before you can get to your hands, and then, do that gut check to make sure you're in the right place. And I think I don't think we spend as much time learning about EQ as we do on IQ. So I think as I've gotten older,
true.
Yeah, I've appreciated that. And then your cultural intelligence, just keep learning and being open to other cultures.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that? Is that CQ? What is that?
CQ. Yeah.
Is it?
Cultural quotient. Some people call it that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We just released a podcast on my global marketing show where we took a deep dive into how do you become intelligent about different cultures. And first comes with understanding your own. And Americans are really pretty funny when you start looking at how we work. So yeah, focus on your IQ, how to do things and how to be smart and how to recite facts and know what's going on, but also touch into those emotions and learn about different cultures.
Love it. Tell them where they can find you again.
Just go to wendypease.com, or you can go right to Amazon. Here's the book, The Global Marketing Show by Wendy Mackenzie Pease. Mm-hmm. And leave a testimonial. And then my company name is Rapport International. So you can just look up Rapport, RAPPORT,
Perfect.
international.com.
All right. Love the EQ. We do a lot of EQ testing, by the way. And I
just gave you the wrong website.
Oh, you did? What was it? What website? Which one?
Well, Rapport International is the company name, but the website is actually Rapport, INTL, short for international.com.
Oh, that's right. It is INTL. Yeah.
Whoops, 17 years. Okay, so anyway, you were talking about emotional intelligence.
Yeah, no, you were. That was good. We're happy to do it for you. If you don't know, we do testing for it. So I love it. And we do a lot of teaching around it, a lot of instruction. We have an exercise around it that I love and called Best Boss, Worst Boss. Man, it's powerful, right? Because we find out how much value and importance of how we interchange and influence people. How about let's talk, first of all, before we're going to end with your verse that is absolutely your go-to. If you're kind of back against it, do you have a saying? Do you have a quote? I want to think about that. I'm going to give you a few seconds to think about your verse. And for everyone else, please follow the show. Subscribe to us, YouTube Live. We always do it on Fridays, 12:30 Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific. Please join us on the Leadershipity channel. We have a lot of resources. You can find us on Leadershipity, Trent M. Clark, on all the social media networks, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everything. LinkedIn is probably our most common where we're at on social media. Also look for our upcoming ebook, The Pyramid of Leadershipity. DM or email me and let me know what you think on the show. Always happy and thankful for the comments. Before we get to questions, please, rate us 5 stars. Winners find a way. And we work hard to deliver value, delivering stories of the 1% leaders. And of course, Wendy is no different. And now, like, she's got a manual if you are going to be in the global marketing space. So you please pick up that book. Wendy, what's your go-to today, your verse? And I have a verse that I picked out for you. And it's funny because you actually alluded to it as you talked about it. So go ahead with your saying.
But I have it hanging on a Post-it right here. These are the good old days.
These are right now. Oh my God. Hard to believe, right? Like,
I
these
know,
are
10
it right
years
now.
we'll be looking back on this saying, remember when, and something
so
good
good.
will come out of today, you know? These are the good old days, so savor each moment.
I love that. It does center us, right? Like, keep us centered. So as you talked about our hearts, right? When we think about, I pulled out Proverbs 4:23, which was, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. And it's very easy for us, in my opinion, like you talked about that emotional, to think logically, oh, well, logically that doesn't. What's your heart tell you? Like, in a lot of things, like, and most people think we have input through our minds and through all the what we learn, but our heart is really what we need to guard, about that character, about that integrity, and everything else flows from it. So thought about that when I thought of you, Wendy, and you have a big heart. So super thrilled. Let's get to some questions for everyone else. Thanks for listening. If you're driving, we'll see you on the next episode of Winners Find a Way, and that's next Friday, and we are in Phoenix. So we're excited about actually being on location, actually, with a guest next Friday. First question for you, Wendy, is you had values that you're practicing and even developing. What values are you practicing, even developing, that made you change the way you see things or your perspective?
Okay, so also up on my bulletin board up here, I've got my company values, I've got my personal values, and then I've got my parenting values.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Do they commingle at all?
Yeah. They do. Yeah, they do. So our company values are connect. Well, which ones do you want to hear?
Let's hear the company values, and then let's go to the parenting values, because I hear personal values all the time. I want to hear the parenting values just because I'm looking to learn. Right?
Okay, so the company values we did as a team, and I thought it was fantastic that we're trying to connect. So we connect with our clients, our providers, across languages, across cultures. We want to understand, because translation and interpretation is all about understanding. We want to deliver, on time, and be reactive and responsive, and then quality. We're all about high quality.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah. And then my parenting ones are that the kids are open to new experiences and trying, that they're honest. I've always told them, you can tell me anything as long as you're honest. You'll get a lot of trouble if you lie to me. That they're kind people, that they're healthy, and that they're productive.
Love that. Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Let's here's a you've won a lot. You've had a lot of success, but you've also been knocked down a couple of times. What's the best battle that you've ever conquered in your life?
I went through a divorce when the kids were young, and it was very difficult. I was running my company and trying to support myself and raise the kids, and my biggest priority was the kids and to raise them within those values. And they're young men now, and they are very open. They're sensitive to other people. They've got good interests. They're friends that are close to. They've got good relationships with. So I think the divorce was the biggest challenge in trying to come through that.
That's a good, and listen, so many people have gone through that, and it's not easy, and it's not easy. That's a huge battle, and what a success story! Like the boys, I think that's pretty cool that the values have maintained through it all. So critical. Super job. So why don't you describe what that's like? I'd like to kind of play off that. Describe what it's like to be a leader with 2 kids and divorced, and like, what does that look like on a daily basis? Are you sleeping like 90 minutes a day, or
Oh.
how do you do it when it was going down? Like when it was just when you were right in the middle of the thick of it, and you're talking about boys, in their single digits, right? And navigating those waters.
It was all about perspective. So when the kids were young, I built my day around their school schedule. So
Hmm.
put them on the bus, and then I worked while they were at school, and then I got them off the bus and I focused on them. And it was really hard for me because I am a driver at work and I did want to grow, but I kind of stepped back and said, it was good coaching that I had. This isn't I need to incorporate my whole life.
Mm.
And I'll never regret the time I spent with my children. My
Yeah.
business grew slower um, when I was going through that, and I focused on what was the most
Yep.
important thing at the time. And now they're older, they don't need me as much. And so I wrote
Booming.
a book, I started a podcast, I hired a
Yeah.
couple people. I like working better than home projects. So
Yeah, right. You can hire those out, right?
yeah, or they can wait.
Yeah, right. So that's awesome. So you're very self-reflective. Let's end here. You're very self-reflective, and when you take a look in the mirror, what is something that you see that other people may not be taking a look at in their own mirror at, like that they're missing? That you said, oh wow, I've gotta pay attention to this. I gotta notice this about me and be aware. And other people look in and go, I don't even see it, right? I don't see anything. Like I'm missing it.
That self-doubt. Like if I could go back 20 or 30 years ago, rather than
Mm.
being so critical of myself
Yes.
or not understanding what I do bring, like I just wish when I was younger I knew my self-worth.
Yeah.
And so when I look in the mirror and I start to doubt, I'm like, okay, hang on a second.
Yeah. Good.
You were
Good.
put here for a reason, and then try to go through all the good things, the gratitude things.
Did you have people that fed you that? Like, did they encourage you? Did you hear that a lot? Like, I see 2 things. Like, I see people that never hear that, right? So it's easy to come on because if there's any negative self-talk, no one else is going to refute it, right?
Yeah.
But I also hear people that hear it all the time and they just refuse it. Like, it's not true. I don't believe it. Even though they're being told it, they don't accept it. They don't let it in.
Yeah, I don't think I let it in because I certainly had people that
Mm-hmm.
would give me enough or would say it, but I didn't let it in. But then again, that's outside validation.
Yep.
And how do you bring that internal
Yes.
validation, which is so
Yeah.
important? Because
Yeah.
I'm talking young adult, not young child. As a young
Yeah.
child, you need
Yeah.
that. But
For sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So that's a tough one, and I think we always talk about it. Where people are the imposter syndrome, and we all doubt.
yeah.
And I think people are always amazed at when you see like the best in the world of something. And go, wait a minute, you doubted you were going to make that free throw? Like yeah, like even though I've shot 100,000 in my life, right? Like this is an important one, right?
Yeah.
And you've done it, and yet there's still that creeps in. It does creep in, and
Yeah.
I think I listen. You can say go back 30 years. I can say yesterday go back and say, man, I wish I could get that self doubt away. Like, yeah, 30 years would have been really good, but I just like to get rid of yesterday's. As hard as that was.
Yesterday's, yeah.
That was a hard day. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. Well, Wendy, Pease, so thrilled and blessed to have you on, and
Thank
thankful,
you.
and always fun to spend time with you, and so grateful. So please join us next time for Winners Find a Way next Friday, Leadershipity channel, YouTube live at 12:30 Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific. Wendy, thank you so much. Hold up your book. Go out and get Wendy's book, or you might just want to call rapportintl.com and get your translator services together, especially if you're going global. You're going to need it. Do it right. You're going to want to talk to an expert. So thank you so much, Wendy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for another Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, Trent Clark. If you love this episode, share this episode with your friends and follow us on whatever podcasting medium you're listening to. If you want more content from us, join us at leadershipity.com or the Leadershipity YouTube channel. You can find us on all the social media networks at either Trent M. Clark or Leadershipity. For our award-winning workshop, Win with Great Teams, you can find that page on LinkedIn as well as our corporate page, Leadershipity. If you want to win more, it starts with you today. Say it with me now. I have what it takes.